Good morning all from here in Cambodia. I've been up for about an hour now, and I've had time to say a quick prayer and then get a couple of cans of Coke into me and some cigarettes. I'll probably eat around 10, and that's pretty much my routine here in Cambodia. At present, my sleep pattern has returned to somewhat more of a normal range, and it's all good. I'm feeling a lot better than what I was last night after I had that episode, and I'm grateful. I think it's the influx of my medication coupled with feeling fear um, that brought on that um, episode. So you know, um, finally opening up about some of the more conspiratorial nature of my delusions, and it's all good. I guess what's left for me to do now is confront certain individuals, whom I believe were involved in that sort of activity, and I've still got to fly back to Australia. So could that mean, that I might not make it home? That's the kind of fear that I experience, when I start to form a paranoid delusion in my mind. Pardon me, but I just farted, and perhaps that's all they are, just farts. But for me, they seem so real, and it's how I've survived my entire life, by anticipating and then constructing a catastrophe in my own mind and then avoiding it or slipping into a pretense in order to survive, the more diabolical aspects of human nature. And by that I mean dealing with aggressive people. I've never been really aggressive except for when I'm really distressed. And so it's a part of myself that I like. But the only trouble is, I can slip into passivity and I'm not really engaged with other people. There's a term called de-affectualization, and that basically means that you're disconnected from your emotions. And that's how I feel a lot of the time, you know, um, because I don't trust them basically. When I'm feeling vibrant and energized, there's a part of me that wants to dominate and control the situation and rise to the top of the heap, so to speak, become the cream of the crop. Um, and I become arrogant and egotistical and, nonchalant. Um, and, it's not something I'm really proud of. And I generally, because I have a subconscious awareness of it, I generally don't engage in that kind of activity. Um, but for me, it's about finding some kind of middle ground, and I struggle with that. Generally, I avoid pretty much all human contact, except for when I need food, cigarettes, or Coca-Cola. And aside from that, I have very limited human interaction. And I can blame the language barrier, here in Cambodia, but it's not real. I'm pretty much the same in Australia as well. And that's because I want to be in control, and have a huge time letting go and surrendering control, firstly to my higher power and then to others. And I see it now as something like uh, a Denzel Washington movie, where he comes up against, um, a fallen angel, that's even evil in nature and has the capacity to move from one host to the next, and he's walking down the street and, every time, following this demon or whatever, and it touches one person and they give him a 6 mile, and and he follows that person, and then they touch someone else, and you know um that's how I see control happening. It's always in transition. No one's got a right to monopolize it, and I guess that's where I err, in the sense, when I become egotistical, I think I've got a fucking monopoly on, you know, I think I'm an authority on certain subjects, but it's just shit. I'm eclectic. I know a little about a lot of things, but nothing to be an expert on. And reality is and I haven't achieved anything academically. So and that's where, I guess, looking back at my first stint in rehab, where we were sitting in a group and we had to write a compliment about other members of the 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 rehab, or the other participants. And one lady said that I was the champion of the underdog. And I can have delusions about that, in the sense that, I'll show, these, I'll show the elite that, a shearer from an outback community can match it with them intellectually and things along those lines, and it's just fucking rubbish. Most human beings, who are in touch with their emotional intelligence, realize that they don't have to be exceptional or extraordinarily gifted in the academic realm to spot bullshit. Whereas I want to captivate and enchant, the masses, so to speak, as if I was some kind of prophet. And it's just wishful thinking, basically. So I don't really know what else to say. I had a suggestion that I should, change my the place where I make these videos. It's a bit dull, glum. The curtains are drawn, but there were bars. And, that'd require me stepping out of my comfort zone. And, I don't know if I'm really ready to do that. So, what I do know is that when I slip into my personality, it can be a real rogue, uh, if that makes sense. Like I mentioned, I want to dominate, control, usurp, subjugate, other individuals. And it's tyrannical. And I posted on the 2 posts that I posted last night. I started to get real and get honest about, the paranoid delusions that I experience, what I've been subjected to, and how that's made me feel, what it's brought to the fore. And the truth of the matter is, I'm a paranoid schizophrenic. I can accept that today. It doesn't mean that people don't play games with you. Reality is, I was once with my father, and he never used to pay for meat. He'd go out and shoot someone else's cow, and then cut it up. And on this particular day, he'd invested some money in a silencer for his 22. He wanted a means to be able to shoot crows without scaring the rest of them away. And with a silencer, you have to use low velocity bullets. Anyway, on this particular day, he decided to try it out on this meat run, and we pulled up around a mob of cow. My father selected a beast and then proceeded to shoot it, and it dropped the cow, but then it got back up again. And my father had a fit of anger and drove home and got his 22 Magnum, with high velocity bullets, and come back down. And it was about half an hour waiting around this mob of cattle to get another shot at this cow that he'd stunned with the low velocity 22 bullet. And all the other cattle started to horn it, because there was something wrong with it. And what I've learned from that today is, if you have a mental health issue, and people detect that, they think that you're odd or peculiar, and they will fucking gang up on you. There ain't no fucking doubt about that. It's just, the law of nature, so to speak, to ostracize and push out, damaged or corrupted aspects of fucking life. And so that's how I feel about my mental health issues. And I've come to accept the fact that there will always be stigma of some description, because even normal people patronize a delusional, a delusion that optimizes their life. Because the bottom line is, you only need food, shelter, and the capacity to reproduce, and that should be enough. They're the essentials: love, empathy, and compassion as well. Nurturance and things along those lines for small children. But aside from that, it's just one big fucking game. And I could never equate to that due to the trauma that I'd experienced in my early childhood, and thinking that there was some bountiful enterprise in spiritual connection that was going to revolutionize the fucking rest of life and society. Whereas today I realize it's just a personal choice. If I want to survive, the disease that's in my mind, then I need to practice spiritual principles and endeavor to help others that are struggling with the same sort of issue and finding some sort of common ground and mutuality, where bonds can be formed, because I never really formed those kinds of bonds and attachments, to my immediate family. So here I am going off on tangents. So I don't really know what else to say. It's another long post. I'm not an entertainer, even though at times I mention, I do have that aspect of my personality that's, really masochistic, loves to get into a fray, so to speak. Not physical aggression, but, just domination, and submission, that BDSM sort of activity. I'm not those sort of impulses. I've learned a lot from that. I can't envision myself ever experimenting in that realm, but yeah, it's amazing some of the places I've ventured into with an open mind and adopted some of their I wouldn't say philosophies, but aptitudes in regards to human behavior and conditioning. So like I mentioned, it's a fucking long post. 17 minutes. No one really wants to listen to someone else for 17 minutes, unless it's kind of about their life story or something along those lines. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just restless, counting down the days until I go back to Australia. I guess I'm a little bit lonely, looking for connection. I have issues at the meetings that I attend, due to my paranoia. But I have been exposed to content that does lend itself to make it real, in the sense that there's some really nasty games can be played out on the fucking internet, in chat rooms, meetings online, and even in that Reddit and on YouTube. So such is life, as Ned Kelly would say. Yeah, in this era, fucking hackers, they bandy together to bring about harm minimization, when in reality, they have the types of personalities that need to be managed as well, due to the controversial nature of them. So it's humbling to admit, it's humbling to accept, that I'll always be in harm minimization for a certain, to a certain degree, because I do have antisocial or asocial tendencies at times. Yeah, that's enough. Please subscribe if you want. I'm content with my 4 subscribers. All's well and good. Leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Ciao for now.